I went to a small indescript college called Idaho State University, a little town called Pocatello, Idaho. People didn't even know that Idaho existed because they always say, well, good luck to you in Iowa. I had to tell them geographically where the Idaho was. So my West Point classmates were all West Pointers, most of them. That's at 95% of them. And they all drove Corvettes, right? And I'm there driving a Volkswagen Fastback. Could you imagine the intimidation that they're more precise than I am? And I felt threatened. I felt intimidated that I'm not as good as them. And over time, because I had a different career path, I just got tired of being marginalized. Hard to socialize with other officers because of me being the stereotypical Asian American that can't seem to socialize. And over time, I just basically said, not to get mad, not to get even, but I want to get ahead. So I studied a lot. I made sure that I performed well, even though I was considered an average officer. And finally, when I got to Germany, that enough is enough. I was married then, I had a daughter, and I basically said, I need to ask my commander, an African-American colonel, that I needed to present myself to perform, and he gave me that chance. As one of the few Asian Americans in a unit of about 3,500 troops, who am I going to talk to, right? So I spoke to my very first mentor, who I also consider as my tour mentor. He was white. He was my commander. He was 32 years old, and I'm 34. You know, could you imagine somebody that's younger than me? I'm asking him for sage advice, and I basically asked, could he tell me or help me how I can perform better? I wasn't talking about my color, because I had about 100 men and women and soldiers that was under my charge. And I was, that's a huge responsibility, but I want to perform. And of course, over time, it went to asking folks, superior to me or my contemporaries, and that basically broke the ice, you might say, because it's the same issue today. If you feel like you're being left alone because you don't know what the heck you're doing, and I dare say not everybody knows what the heck they're supposed to do in your job, especially as leaders, ask around. That doesn't happen to be another Asian person, just bring it and take the risk of asking others of color or even gender to see how well you can perform. It's better to know then than try to second guess yourself, because there's no, you might say, crystal ball out there knowing that you could do. Test them out, be respectful. I have this motto that if you see somebody that's not performing well, is instead of chewing them out and yelling at them, you bring them aside and you say, let me show you what I actually want you to do. If you want to chew them out, you got to hug them at the same time and you say, I don't want you to fail. Nobody wants to fail in that matter. Humility sometimes counts, empathetic, because that's what they want you to understand. If you're going to be in the leadership mode, put yourself in their position, because you probably have been there, because you're not a perfect leader to begin with. You did it because you did it about a lot of hard work. So it's a learning. Every day is like a discovery learning. Be prepared to have a solution, right? So I don't know if I answered your question, but that bodes well with me. So
You
I
definitely
didn't
have.
I didn't plan to be a general, by the way. I planned to be, every rank was like the last rank I'm going to serve under until somebody says, okay, we promote you. Um, and well, I was one of the lucky ones that got promoted to two-star general, and I I acknowledged my family for doing that and the people um, who made me there. Now, something in every performance evaluation that you're putting together, right? You always say something like, "Oh, I performed this," or "I managed that," and whatever have you. If you're in the leadership mode, leadership position, just think about the ones that actually put you in that tier. We often say I on our performance reports. We typically don't say we. Somebody put you into that pillar, and you need to acknowledge them.
Definitely hear the key points that you sort of raised. You talking about, gaining knowledge and learning, right?
Yeah,
And seeking opportunities for mentorship and leadership. Just coming off of that, like, have you seen the workplace evolve in terms of, offering support for communities for AA and NHPI colleagues?
right.
And if there are, like, what's I guess what specific advice can you give? You talk about even, like, the performance evaluations, like,
Yeah,
how can you sort of help develop, your folks to succeed, because, failure is not an option, right?
yeah. I'm presenting to a great amount of leaders that you have on the audience today. Going back in time, even today, is that when you are promoted to a position of leadership or management, uh, it's thinking back about how you did it, right? And then presenting yourself to your the men and women in your organization because they're going to be curious about who you are and what are your expectations of them in as much as what is your expectation of yourself. So one of the items was that your leadership philosophy is if you don't know how to present yourself where you could actually be truthful and visible to your subordinates, then you're going to be a curiosity. Um, some things and you have a copy of all of that stuff is tell them who you are and what your values are. Number one, what are your expectations, right? Don't make it like a two-pager because once you go to the second page, you just kind of lost them. Put everything in one page. And I think your values, your beliefs, your expectation, a little bit about your experience, your family, upfront, your nationality. You know, hi, I'm Tony Taguba. Oh, by the way, I'm an American citizen of Filipino descent. Um, I try to speak as good of an English as I can, type of thing. And oh, by the way, I'm, you might say I'm approachable. If you don't think you're doing something wrong, you're right, and you come to me. And I've always believed that if you're in a management or leadership position, is that your responsibility to have a safe, healthy, and open environment where people would actually have a sense of teamwork. I know that's an aspiration because every organization is going to be that one outlier that's trying to make trouble for you. And then you got to have a set of solutions for that. You know, um, it, you don't want to have a toxic leadership environment. This happens. It happens. Um, you know, you don't want to be in that position where you're going to be remembered as the guy that got fired or you're firing people. because people are humans. They're not machinery, and they have feelings. But you can't expect to have 100% perfect organization. 70%, 85% strive for the top. I know some of my contemporaries that were relieved of duty, both civilian and military. As a senior mentor, I get a lot of people who I've been mentoring that they don't know who to deal with. I'll give you one occasion where a West Point graduate, retired, service, working for the government service organization, was always competing for promotion, and then she lost out on a less experienced, less educated subordinate, and she finally said, how do I do that? Well, you file a complaint, but when you file a complaint, you better have your ducks in order. Why? Ultimately, she won a judgment where the selection committee actually discriminated against her. She was a person of color, been in the job for like 12 years, and they selected somebody that was only on the job for 8 years. Sometimes it matters. So the selection committee did not have a criteria for promotion. They just basically made their own judgment ahead, and she won. And she was promoted to the position she was competing for, plus $400,000 in damages, plus some other actions that the administrative judge did. Now, I did not contribute a lot of that. It was a matter of just saying, if you want to prove yourself, you better document it. You better document it. And that's just one. I'm still working on another one. Well, Caucasian American, who was, you might say, minimized on her job. And she's got a PhD to begin with. Minimized until she had to file a lawsuit and moved out. This has been ongoing now for 4 years. So there's a lot of things like that, but consequences do happen. But if you're the leader, just don't take responsibility. You're accountable for the health and welfare of your, I call health and welfare of your employees, right? So.
That's a really interesting point. You talk again, you talk about how providing support to individuals, AAPIs and NHPIs in these type of positions. I had mentioned earlier about, you being a board member of, Pan Pacific American Leaders and Mentors, PPALM, and how, that's a professional network of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, military and civilian folks that sort of provide leadership, education, mentoring, and fellowship opportunities. Do you think that, this would be a really great opportunity for individuals to sort of collaborate with, organizations like these to advance in leadership type roles, and like how, what sort of programs or what sort of opportunities can you provide?
We, if you go to our website, ppalm.org, we provide several. Hang on, okay, hang on. I was babysitting an 8-pound terrier in the office, so whining, and she didn't want to bark. But anyway, she was being mindful not to bark and interrupt. We started that program in 2006, primarily with the military, when we had a report that Asian Americans in the Army, specifically in the Army, were 6% lower on the scale of promotions and selections for schools. Of course, on top of that scale was white Americans and also Black Americans. So we started that program, and over time it kind of morphed into having civilian professionals there, and we also provide mentoring services, or leadership development services for college students. So now we're basically international. We have members from Korea all the way to Hawaii, Alaska, United States, and Germany, and Great Britain. And I think we still have one member in Brazil. But all of that said, it was about providing not just mentorship, but networking, leadership development through seminars, which we have now, and the program. And over time, there are other organizations like the Asian American Government Executive Network that's there. We're partnered with them, and also the Federal Asia Pacific American Council on that as well. It's growing. One of the things when we talk about DEI today, my opinion is we're not too serious with that, because diversity is there, equity is difficult, and even inclusion is questionable. We typically just use those words. For PPALM, we think we're diverse enough as it is. We're not just Asian Americans in membership. We welcome other people of color, to include white, by the way. So, and we're very proud of that. And for the matter that sometimes we forget that mentorship or mentoring is forgotten, or at least set aside over time. We mentor our kids, right, to succeed and do things good in school and whatever have you. And occasionally we torment them by saying, if you're not going to do this, you're not going to get the car that you wanted for graduation. It's the same process. I just make light of that. But we do want to help people to succeed. I'll give you a good example. A person of color I've never met, just recently, about 4 months ago. I'm going to use his name, Thomas Matthews, who wanted to join the Air Force. 27 years old, master's degree. Never met him, but he was referred to me by somebody else called Taguba. He'll help you join the Air Force. So I finally met him at a in-person meeting, and we just basically had the same question: what do you want to do this? What do you want to do away with that high-paying job that you have in the cybersecurity? And he said, he's Indian, from India, Indian American. And he just persuaded himself that he wanted to join. So a little bit of mentorship, reviewing his application and things of that nature, helped him. So now he's on his way for a direct commissioning program with the United States Air Force. I referred him a couple more mentors, potential mentors, because he wants to join the Space Force, and I think he's gonna make it. The charge to him is that he's buying me lunch, or he could be a member of PPALM, and to help mentor others based on his own experience. So it's a growing opportunity. It's not as much as another quote that we use. Is not as being a leader is not about how big your organization is. It's about how many leaders have you grown. Always looking back. I like the term, I was the first of this and the first of that. But are you going to be the last of it? Look back. Have someone be like you, and help others succeed in that matter. That's true mentorship, as opposed to I'm going to be number one all the time. That's never going to happen. You may be the first one, but you may also be the last one, and that's happened before. This has happened before, so we all have to be cognizant that somebody made you who you are, not necessarily your parents, but or your kids. And then they'll probably say that I made it because you look back and you say all of you made that happen. So I have those beliefs. Again, don't get mad, don't get even, just get ahead. In a plausible way, not in a violent way. So people will remember you for that too.
Great advice. I'm sort of picking up that, mentorship is definitely a really great tool in sort of advancing yourself, advancing opportunities. And, I hear you, right? And that's personally what inspires me. I mean, the importance of sort of developing leaders, and you're a really great, example of that. So, I mean, what advice would you give to other AA and NHPI professionals who are just entering the workforce with aspirations of becoming,
Yeah.
an aspiring leader like yourself in their respective fields? What are some takeaways?
So I'm sorry. I've always thought that everything you do in life is transactional. I'm sorry, transformational, not transactional. We often say on mentorship, going back there, that I'll help you, but this is not a transaction. I can't help you find a job. Okay? I will help you try to develop yourself where you can find a job and transfer this transformational side. And it goes on and on and on. For those youngsters that are getting youngsters, of course, because I'm 72, because when they enter, like a brand new college student who wants to go, say, enter the business world, is not designing, but put things that on your resume that people would believe in you. I tell brand new second lieutenants in the armed forces that you're highly educated, least trained, less privileged, but people are going to follow you out of curiosity unless you present yourself well. And everybody may not present themselves 100%, especially for a brand new college graduate who wants to find a job. And this is where you need to seek someone of talent that you can trust, and then ask them. It doesn't have to be the same color. It could be a different color of person. And just to ask them for advice that I'm trying to do this and I just can't sort out the path. And someone that you trust, for example. And just like Thomas Matthews, sight unseen asking me. Or Lixmi Noren, not knowing who she is. She was GS-15 when I first met her. I'm sorry, GS-13 when I first met her. It's from the State Department. With the name Lixmi Noren, I thought, what kind of name is that? Well, Cambodian refugee. And all of a sudden, like last year, she was nominated to take a job as a GS-15 for I think humanitarian causes at the State Department. When one of the selecting member called me out of the blue if I would recommend her to take that job. And having known her for maybe 5 years, I said, she's your pick. Now, I didn't know any magic because I didn't know who I never met the selection committee member was to begin with. And she's doing well. But again, it's a matter of making sure that, intuitively speaking, that you know who you are first. And ensure that, you kind of broadcast that in a nice, fashionable way, not bragging, not using a lot of I, because people will think that, one, you're conceited, and two, you're probably making a false impression of yourself. Everything is on a, we don't use it anymore. Interpersonal relationships, right? That's not a bad term. It's human relations to see that. And I dare say that for Asian Americans today, it's a lot harder to prove yourself because you're probably facing some stereotypical notion from the person that is actually either hiring you or interviewing you. But even within the Asian American ranks, you know, this is why we think we should understand other Asian American cultures, not just once a year. We have Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders. Do it every day. Because we're no longer a homogeneous set of nationalities. And sometimes we stay within our own community because we don't feel comfortable outside of our community. A perfect example of that are Filipinos. They hang out. They don't invite other folks to kind of join them. Now, I may be wrong, but I'm kind of right most of the time. My wife, I met on a blind date in Hawaii, white, German nationality. I was introduced to her by another friend and got married in Denmark. Joined the military. She came over from Hawaii to join me in Germany. Been married almost 43 years, and I tell her that she's Filipino, just in a white color. Because a matter of understanding her side, parents and relatives, and our side. It's called blending yourself with other folks because of the love word, right? You must have loved somebody before you do that, and then you may struggle by having biracial kids and asking, or you might say experiencing something of a different nature, right? So be prepared for that, because that's humanity. So it's never a perfect solution. But for developing leaders, I think they're more talented and technologically advanced today. But there's the human aspect of it that sometimes get in the way. But again, don't get mad, don't get even, just get ahead. Then you'll feel better that way. So for those of you listening or sleeping with your eyes open, I don't know if you have other questions to ask of me, but I'm willing to answer your questions if you want to.
Thank you so much, General Taguba. We can open it up in the chat. The microphones are off as we're broadcasting live, but we certainly do welcome any questions or comments in the chat for Major General Taguba.
Come on, I'm wearing my Kevlar vest in case you start wanting to verbally shoot at me. So.
No, I was just I have so many notes here, General Taguba. This is Lisa. As we await any questions or comments in the chat, but so many great takeaways and so many things that I'm going to be quoting again. I'll give you credit. But many things that I know that I'm going to carry forward, as I move forward in my career, and that I also will be careful to share with others. There is a question in the chat, and Glory, if you can see that, I'll let you moderate.
All right. Yes. So we do have a question from Finlay. So General Taguba wanted to ask if you could share with us a moment in your career life that was transformational and still inspired you today.
That's a very good question. What goes back to when I felt almost disgusted about my career. in the military, because I'm a tanker. We call it the armor branch, and I was getting all kinds of different assignments, administrative, field artillery, that type of thing. And the first time I saw a tank was in Germany, and I had been in the army like almost 8-9 years, and I was thinking of myself as getting out because nobody ever believed in me. So I took the hard road by asking my commander, who I considered my, not as considered as a mentor per se, because he was my commander, of how I can improve myself. And I was basically, you might say, having a reflection that I wasn't progressing very well. And he did, he told me what I needed to do and how to improve myself. And I also depended on my sergeants to tell me what I'm doing wrong. That's sometimes the pride comes in. You don't tell your subordinates, how am I doing, or what can I improve? And I've used that that value as a way for me to know that I'm not a perfect leader. And of course, you share that thinking with the troops, because leaders today, like senior executives, think that they know what the heck they're doing. They're not. And you basically may fail had you not asked somebody for their opinion, especially your subordinates. What can I do better? And people are very resistant when you're having a town hall meeting per se, or like within your office. Just kind of have a sensing session that says, okay, let's talk about this. This is like maybe an annual thing, or maybe a semi-annual. You ask them 3 questions. What are we doing good? What are we doing not so good? And if you're in my shoes, what would you do better? If you open about that and not having any kind of reprisal because somebody criticized you, okay, maybe they're right. But then at the end of the day, you have like a good huddle and you say, all right, all this stuff, all this improvements, we're all going to do it together, right? Because they're going to dump on you. But then you're going to say, okay, well, I'm going to need some help here, so let's do it together. A little bit of a teamwork. And I bet you people will actually volunteer to make your organization better. No more whining. Because the whining is not about drinking wine or having cheese and crackers. Whining can be very helpful until you get everybody together and you say, okay, here's what we got to do. And people will be trying to own the problem of themselves, because people are just human. They're gonna give you the problem and they expect you to fix it. Well, maybe you can't fix it by yourself. It's gonna take teamwork. We don't use that anymore. It's called a sensing session. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? How can we improve? 3 questions. No retribution, by the way.
We're heading to the top of the hour, but we want to sort of make sure that we sort of get to these
Okay.
questions. I'll try to batch them.
Okay.
So we have one from Mark. He's asking, what was something an ally did that was most impactful in your journey? And another one that probably sort of ties in with that is, if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself on your first day of basic training? So just trying to like make it a 2-parter in that one question.
Well, let me answer both questions, if I may. If I had back in time, I should have just accepted the fact that I'm different. And I was different. I should have accepted the fact that I'm just as good as them, or try to be as good as them, and try to be more visible. Being silent all the time is not very helpful. It's actually more excruciating than anything else. And I should have sought, you might say, advice, counsel, coaching at the very beginning. And over, if you go back to your leadership philosophy, that I did my leadership philosophy when I was already a lieutenant colonel. I mean, way back then. That I did exactly know what my values were or what I expected from my subordinates, and share that with them. And being introspective, we don't do that any as well as we do as being retrospective. Is that trying to do some self-identification, examination per se, that you want to go from point A to point Z, but you have to transform there, because you just can't go from A to Z being transactional all the time. Then you become selfish and not knowing who you are, because you belong to a team. You're not a leader of yourself unless you're self-employed like me, right? But I've done that, and I think it's better for everybody. And always be attentive to what people are telling you, unless they're criticizing you. Of course, criticism is okay as well, but maybe they're true, So I don't know if I answered your question, Mark, but I have not met you. I don't know how you look like, but I guess that you want to be successful. But how you're going to do that is on you, and not just you, but people that surround you. Write everything down. I have a boss that says, if you're going to just tell me something, or am I going to tell you something, you better write it down. I kept some of them. Yeah. So, is that okay? Mark, I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Yes, he actually did say thanks. We actually do have a couple of questions, and a few folks had to drop off the chat. But one good thing about technology is that it's recorded, and so they're hoping that we could ask their questions, and they could replay it later on in the future if you have time, General.
Yeah.
We have a couple of more questions.
Okay.
So we have a question from Aless, and she asked, where were you born in the Philippines? A softball question from a daughter of parents born in Manila. Where your family from?
I was born in Sampaloc, Manila, near that borders Manila and Fort Quezon City in 1950. Now you know that I'm an older guy. Much older guy. I'm an elderly person. And of course, growing up there was an aspiration for all of us to come to America, but that sometimes it's not always the case. But we were, guided by the fact that my dad was responsible for that. And I think that America has been generous to us. But you might say we were lucky. We're very fortunate for that.
And her second question is, if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself on your first day of basic training?
I would say, quit hiding on the second or third row. Be up front. That's what happened. I thought, going back when I stayed in my room all the time. I didn't socialize because I thought nobody wanted my friend, let alone try to seek them out. Right? Feeling sorry for myself. Well, that's not going to happen today. You can't make that happen today. Like we always said, if you want to succeed, be upfront about it and stay in front. And because you're part of the American dream. There's a lot more. millions of people that want to be in your place today. Millions trying to cross that border to be like you today. Well, show it. Just show it that they can be like you today. So.
Good advice. Good advice. And I think we have one final note
Okay.
from Matthew. And this is related to an article that was in the U.S. Army War College.
Yes.
Called Diversity as a Strategic Asset: How Asian Americans Strengthen the Force, published in May of last year. The major highlights can be found in personnel, why are Asian Americans underrepresented in the military, where you may find startling statistics, including the underrepresentations of Asian Americans at senior levels, with only 1.8% serving as general officers or flag officers.
Right.
So you're a good person to ask this question of overall Asian Americans are underrepresented in the national security workforce. Why do you think this is the case, and what would you suggest as defense leaders to improve their recruitment, retention, and inclusion of Asian Americans?
You know, somebody interviewed me about a similar question, that why we're underrepresented. I think the Asian American community, as small as we are today, think that being in the military does not provide you with the kind of opportunities that you can in the civilian world, right? Because somehow it doesn't matter. You want parents that raise you at home would say, I want you to be a doctor, I want you to be an engineer, I want you to make a lot of money, because we didn't have money before. But serving in the military, it's not going to make you a millionaire. Being in the military actually will help you represent our community of every Asian American ethnicity, and we have that. But proportionally speaking, we're small compared to African Americans, and also white Americans. We even lead the Latino, the Hispanics, because some of them don't even consider serving in the military as part of your citizenship and patriotism. We do have a lot of, when I was at West Point, I was talking to the cadets that said that the attrition rate for Asian Americans to serve up to 20 years doesn't necessarily happen that much, because the attrition rate is that serving in the military goes to your obligation. In other words, you graduate from West Point, or you graduate from RTC, or from Officer Candidate School, and then you get trained as a leader, and we're the only profession that does that, the military. And then you get a master's degree, and today's world of tech and artificial intelligence, and you know, the resources that we have today, people will get out after about the 5th or 7th year, because by then they're probably married, they have kids, and you're not going to make a lot more money in the military as opposed to in the business world, the corporate world. That's happening today. So we have a retention problem. And there's another research that's going on that says most people don't succeed up beyond the 10th grade, the 10th year mark. So they leave to find other opportunities. Well, that's a good and bad thing. One, they did serve in the uniform. Two, now they're serving their country or themselves in a different manner, right? And there's some other economical and social things that are happening with our group, with our cohort. That and there's a lot of us general officers, retired and active, are trying to do that, and then, you know, that matters. Now, we're talking about individual people, because when you get married and you stay in the military, you get 49% of the vote. The 51% goes to your wife and your kids that says, do you want to stay in the military, or should we find another way, because we have college to think about, and you're not making enough money, you're always out in the field, you're always absent. You know, I did that. You know, you're talking to a model of that I was never around for them. I was always deployed, always out in the field. And then, retiring 34 years later. And guess what? The kids are in college. So you can't say I want to spend more time with my family. That's time has passed, right? Because they're in college. They're trying to make their own lives. But it goes back to how do we deal with Asian Americans wanting to join the military? I'll tell you, it's a 50% proposition. Some will go to West Point because they're going to get a good education. Some will go to ROTC, but that's a different, you might say, different way of getting into the Army, and some will go to Officer Candidate School. But serving your country, I think, as Asian Americans, is still a patriotic thing to do. For those who want to do that and want to succeed, find a mentor. If there's more questions to be asked, because I didn't answer the entire question, just you guys know how to get a hold of me. Gloria has my number, my cell number, email address, my bank account. What else do you have? The type of car I'm driving. I'm serious. I'm helping a major Army major trying to do his PhD at Georgetown on why is this a cultural contrast within ourselves, and also how the military establishment seem to think that we're not good enough. You know why? Because commanders and leaders don't take the time to understand the cultural distinctions of Asian Americans. They lump us all in one category, not knowing that I wasn't born in a foreign country. I was born in the United States, and I can speak good English. I have a BA or PhD or whatever the case may be. They just think of you as somebody else, as a common. So that's the problem with diversity today, is we don't take the time to sort out our cultural distinctions. By the way, if you want to join us on June 17th, just let me know. We're going to have a seminar on the generational distinctions amongst the Asian Americans. General distinctions. What I mean is that the baby boomers are different from the Generation X, they're different from Generation Z, and different from Generation Alpha. There's a lot of distinctions there. And how do we present that? Not within ourselves, but to the other people of color. We don't take the time to do that. So, I think that's going to be part one, and then we're going to have part two of cultural distinctions and how you relate to the bigger America. Maybe we can do some good. A lot of it, we need to have a diatribe, a discussion, and not just kind of wish it away. It's not gonna, we can't wish it away, especially the polarization of our country today. So, there's a lot of research going on. Is that Matthew that asked that question?
Yes. You definitely hit it on point. As always, thank you so much for your words of wisdom, General Taguba. You definitely are an inspiration, personally to myself, and to all aspiring leaders, in all aspects of, government, and outside as well. So with that being said, we just want to sort of make one note, and Lisa can take it away, but Vin had made a note when someone asked her or him, where are you from? They would say, I'm from Earth. Immediately they understand. So 100% agree that inclusive factor that you had mentioned, continues to need our attention, and that, you know, we have to cultivate and invest in, you know, our future generations. So always, you know, a tremendous opportunity just, you know, having you speak with us. And, you know, as always, we look forward to, you know, your continued, you know, support.
But thank you. And, you know, I hope I helped answer some of your questions and your queries. And for those of you who aspire to be a leader, just don't be that where people follow you out of curiosity. Have some substance to what your leadership means. Always take care of your subordinates, and all the very best in success of your professions. Okay, if you need to meet with me in person, yeah, I'm open. Just, you know, whether it's at Five Guys or Burger King or something like that, you know, just let me know. We can have a good chat. Okay.
Thank you, General. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Yeah. I enjoyed our discussion. So good luck to all of you as you aspire for your greater leadership success. Okay, doke. That good?
Thank you. Yes, that was awesome. Was that good? That was awesome.
It was
Thank
amazing.
you so much. So many takeaways. So many takeaways. I'm happy to share your contact information, your email address, and also share your upcoming event to all those that registered for today's event. It's been a tremendous pleasure hosting you, and we hope that, you know, this conversation can continue. Again, you know, we'll try to get plugged in with the information that you'll share through Glory, and get that out to everyone. And then we hope again to have you back soon, and not just to wait until May, right? Because this is information that needed to be heard by everyone. Even though our focus this month was on AANHPI, the things the takeaways that we got today, this was stuff for everybody. Everybody needed to hear this.
It is.
And so this was fantastic. Absolutely wonderful. So with that, I just say thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you soon. I'll be at your event. I will make sure that I register to attend, and that I share with everyone that registered.
Okay.
Appreciate you so much.
Send the information out to back to you just in case.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you.
Sounds good.
All right.
Good day.
All right. You too. Thank you.
Care.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. All righty. Take care. Have a great afternoon, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you at the upcoming Excel conference. And please get tied in with our educational consortium. The information was provided in the chat. Awesome.
Sounds good.
Take care. All righty.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.